Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Hannah, and in this video I'm going to be doing the best books that I read in 2021. I read so many great books in 2021, and in order to narrow it down and hopefully make this video a little bit more concise, I have limited it to the books that I gave a full 5 stars that are fiction books. I have a nonfiction video coming very soon. So in this video, it's just going to be the best fiction. I'm going to just give you a very brief plot summary, and I'm going to give each book an award, like an award show at the end of the year, but like a one sentence, this book did the best of this. And so I cannot decide which is my favorite. It's impossible. There's like 20 books here. So I put all of the books on these little pieces of paper in my glass boot, and I'm just gonna pull one out at random and we'll start talking about the books that way in a completely random fashion. Also, these books are new to me, so they're not rereads, they're new books that I have never read before, so new favorites. So without further ado, let's start talking about the books. Project Hail Mary by Andy Weir. Project Hail Mary is an adult sci-fi book about a man who wakes up on a spaceship and he's all alone and has 0 memories. I give this book the best companion award, the best bookish friendship, best partnership in a book of the year. Second one is The Band Sinister by KJ Charles. So this is about Guy who lives with his sister Amanda and their neighbor Philip, Sir Philip Rookwood. They live next to each other, and they also hate each other for some personal reasons having to do with their parents, and a feud going on there. And one day Amanda breaks her leg on Philip's property, and Guy goes to stay with her, and he and Philip end up falling in love with each other. I give this book the sweetest, most loving male-male romance of the year. This had one of the sweetest, most caring romances I've ever seen, and most honest and open communication I have ever seen in a romance, and I absolutely adored this book. I read it 4 times. Third slip, Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell. Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell is a historical fiction book about the family of William Shakespeare, and it has to do with the title character Hamnet and the plague. And this also follows Agnes and William Shakespeare as they're getting together, and it's kind of a multiple timeline story of this family and the hardships they go through. I give this book the award of most heartbreaking writing. This is some of the best writing I think I've read all year. And looking at my stack here, I want to say this has the best writing of the year that I read. A Closed and Common Orbit by Becky Chambers. This is part of Becky Chambers' Wayfarer series, which is a series of adult sci-fi books that are very slow paced and very character driven, also extremely queer. This is the second book in the series, the first one being A Long Way to a Small Angry Planet, and this is the second book. The award that I give this book is the best AI as a main character. The best AI character, period, I read all year. Ooh, one that I don't physically own, but Under the Whispering Door by T.J. Klune. This is a story about Wallace, who in the first chapter dies, and he goes to kind of an in-between place between life and death, which happens to be a tea house where the tea shop owner helps souls pass on from the living to the afterlife, and kind of helps them process their death and any unfinished business they have. This was a very sweet book, but also extremely hard-hitting. This has to deal with a lot of death and grief, so definitely look up trigger warnings for this one. It is really tough to read. I give the best Scrooge Christmas type retelling. That's the vibe of this book, where Wallace starts out as kind of a Scrooge-like character, and then by the end of the book he kind of turns it around. All right, then we got, ooh, another one I don't own. Untamed Shore by Sylvia Moreno Garcia. I actually loaned my copy to a friend. Untamed Shore is a noir mystery story, but it's more like a coming-of-age story. And I gave this a full 5 stars. This is my favorite Sylvia Moreno Garcia book, and I've read all of her full-length novels and many of her short stories and novellas, and this is my favorite because I absolutely love the character arc in this one. So I'm gonna go with best coming-of-age story character arc I've seen all year. Best use of shark imagery and imagery in general as a metaphor for what's going on in the story and the growth of the characters. Ooh, the Lady Astronauts series by Mary Robinette Kowal. Okay, so that includes The Calculating Stars, The Faded Sky, and The Relentless Moon. I gave all of these books 5 out of 5 stars. So I will just talk about all of them kind of in this section. So this is an alternate history where a meteor has struck the Earth and the Earth is essentially dying. So the humans are trying to get off the planet and start colonizing the moon and Mars. And there's a ton of political intrigue in the story, as well as science. This is an adult science fiction series, and I absolutely adored every single installment in the series. I give this series the best series I read all year. Let's see. Okay. Ooh, A Dowry of Blood. I love all these books, so I don't know why I'm freaking out every time I pull one out of the jar. A Dowry of Blood by S.T. Gibson is a horror novel, adult horror, about the brides of Dracula. It's like a retelling told through a series of letters written from Constanta's point of view, who is Dracula's first wife. And this explores toxic, abusive relationships. This book is also one of the most beautifully written books I've ever read. Up there with Hamnet, but I already gave Hamnet the Best Writing Award. I give this book the award for most beautiful depiction of an ugly topic. Best vampire story. Best, most beautiful depiction of domestic violence I've ever read. So again, look up trigger warnings for this one as well. Ooh, Pet by Ikweke Emezi. So this one I do own a copy of. Again, I loaned it to a friend. Pet is about our title character Jam, who essentially lives in a utopian society, but something is wrong. She can see a monster that no one else can see, and so she's trying to figure out how to get rid of this monster, and she uncovers some harsh truths about her utopian society. This, I would say, is the best middle grade book I read. I would classify Pet as a middle grade story or a young adult book. it reads very young. The characters are extremely naive. So I would say best middle grade story I read all year, and it did make me sob. Ooh, Magic for Liars by Sarah Gailey. This is a new book to my channel. I just read this in December, and I freaking loved this book. This is a detective story about our title character, Ivy, whose twin sister is magical and works at a magic school, but Ivy does not have any magical powers, and she's extremely jealous of her sister Tabitha. But Ivy is called to the magical school because there was a murder on campus, and Ivy is a private investigator and is tasked with figuring out who done it. This is a wonderful detective story, a wonderful magical story. If you like magical school settings, this is going to be a book for you. This has a lot of queer side characters, and I just really enjoy Sarah Gailey. As you'll see in my December wrap-up, I read a bunch of Sarah Gailey's stories this month. The award I would give this book is, I know it's kind of cheesy, but like best mystery. It actually took me until the very end of the book to figure out who done it. Ooh, Iron Widow by Zirin J. Zhao. This is a young adult sci-fi story, and this is absolutely wild. I have a whole review up for this book on my channel just because I was so blown away by this story, and just like the sheer magnitude of this journey was incredible. We're following a 18-year-old woman named Zetienne, who is on the path for revenge, and there's giant mechas and alien attacks, and it's polyamorous. So I give this book the wildest ride of the year. Absolutely unhinged. Oh. The House in the Cerulean Sea by T.J. Klune. This is about Linus Baker, who is a caseworker for the department in charge of magical youth, and he is sent to an island orphanage to check up on the master of the house and to make sure that all of the children are safe. And of course, they're all magical children, and this is such a beautiful, beautiful found family story. I love this book so very deeply. I give this book the award for best happy tears, best found family, most whimsical happy story of the year. Ooh, The Empress by S.J. Kincaid. So I actually am going to hold up The Diabolic, which is the first book in this series. I reread the Diabolic trilogy this year, so it includes The Diabolic, The Empress, and The Nemesis. And this is a 5-star series for me, and specifically book 2, I think, is one of the best books, like second book in a series I think I've ever read. This is about a altered mutant human named Nemesis, who is what's called a Diabolic. She is created to protect, like, the royalty, the leading houses of this sci-fi world. And it gets crazy. The award for best science goes to this book, this series. The S.J. Kincaid is an actual scientist and a mathematician, and I think that really comes across in the book. So not only do I love the plot and the characters, but the science aspect of the science fiction, I think, is really well done in this series. So best science fiction, best science award. Ooh, Act Your Age, Eve Brown by Talia Hibbert. This is about Eve Brown. This is the third book in the Brown Sisters trilogy. Eve is the youngest, and she is kind of a hot mess, and at the beginning of the book her parents kick her out and say you need to get a real job and get your life together. And so she goes off, and through a series of events she hits a man with her car, and this man, Jacob, owns a bed and breakfast. So she decides to stay with him and nurse him back to health and help him run his bed and breakfast while he's recovering from her smashing him with her car. This is such a quiet love story, such a insulated love story. And to me, I'm gonna say most relatable main character. To me personally, I'm the youngest of 3 girls, and so a lot of what Eve was feeling is kind of how I feel sometimes. Kindred by Octavia E. Butler. This is the story of Dana, who is a black woman from the 1970s, and she is called back in time repeatedly to rescue her white ancestor. Oof, this book is tough to read. A lot of Octavia Butler's books make me feel uncomfortable in a good way. It challenges me, and I think this book gets the award for most effed up and most challenging read for me personally this year. And I did read this twice. I made my partner read it, and he was also feeling very similar feelings. Ooh, A Memory Called Empire by R. Kitty Martine. This is a book that I don't own. I just read it in December as well. This is an epic sci-fi story about a woman who is an ambassador, and the previous ambassador that was in her role was murdered. And so she goes to this planet where she's a stranger and is trying to be an ambassador and do her job as a politician, but also figure out who killed the previous ambassador. This won the Hugo Award in, I think, 2019 or 2020 when it first came out, and I think it is so well deserved. This is so epic and so political. So for this book, I give the Best Political Intrigue Award. Once in Future by Corey McCarthy and Amy Rose Capetta. This is a queer King Arthur retelling set in space. I absolutely adore King Arthur legends, King Arthur retellings, especially when it's queer and diverse, like has diverse, POC in it. And this was just a fun time. I really enjoyed It's a Duology. I loved this duology so much. It hit the sweet spot for me. And it was funny. I loved the banter between the characters. I thought they were very charming and very sweet and loving. So the award this book gets is the best blend of science fiction and magic retelling award. So I think this book does a great job blending elements of science fiction as well as elements of fantasy together. That's the award this gets. The Princess Trap by Talia Hibbert. Another Talia Hibbert made it on this list. This book just makes me happy. This is about a prince Prince Reuben, who kind of accidentally traps Cherry, our title character, our main character, with a deal that she basically has to pretend to be his betrothed so he can improve his image with the press in his country, because he's kind of got this bad boy reputation. And this book it just is so sweet. Like, the romance between these two characters is very sweet, and this is also extremely steamy. The award I give this book is best blend of romance and hard-hitting topics I've seen all year. This book has to deal with an abusive parent. One of the characters abuses Ruben when he was a child and also abuses his own children and his wife, but still ends up being a great romance book. It blended the sweet, steamy romance element and the really serious, dark topic really well. The last one I have is The Intimacy Experiment by Rosie Danan. This is about a woman who is a former porn star turned sex educator and a rabbi. So they team up so Naomi can teach a couple of classes to his congregation and kind of liven up the Jewish community. And they end up falling in love, and this is kind of a slow burn romance between these two characters, and I really appreciated it. Naomi, she has a tough time differentiating between emotional intimacy and physical intimacy, and she's never really been emotionally intimate with anyone before, and I think that was explored extremely well in this book. So I give this book the best slow burn romance award. That is it. Those are all of the books I gave a full 5 stars to that are new favorite fiction books. I know that's really complicated, but I mean, I already talked about like 20 books in this video, and so that's the only way I could like narrow it down, because there were so many books that I gave 4.5 stars to that I could also talk about, but that would be another 20 or so books. So I had to cut it down somehow. So these are all the books I gave 5 stars to and the award they won, just to make it a little bit different. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you had a great reading year, and I will see you in another video very soon. Bye.